Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Virtuous Woman Show. My name is Sheila Juma and I'm so excited and delighted to be hosting you this very wonderful Sunday evening. We hope you've had a great Sunday and a great week from wherever you're watching us from. Thank you so much for tuning in. If it's your first time watching us, this is the show that seeks to inspire and educate women across Kenya. And so we are so happy to be hosting you this evening. If you are yet to follow us on our social media platforms, we are the Virtuous Woman Show across all platforms. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even YouTube. You can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a bunch of content right there for you. I'm sure you're going to get blessed by the content that we have put out there for you. We'd love to hear from you. If there's a topic that you'd like for us to tackle, if there's a suggestion you have for us, please go ahead and reach out to us on any of our platforms. We'll be happy to hear from you and to hear the impact that we are making on your lives. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. We have a very interesting topic for you. We are talking about building mentally healthy relationships, and so this cuts across the board. And so you want to sit back, relax, maybe grab a notebook, because we have a very interesting lady with us on set who's going to educate us and talk to us on this particular topic. So karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you so much. Her name, I've forgotten to say, is Zipporah. Beautiful name. But you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Okay. That's your camera right there.
Okay. So my name is Zipporah Nyangara Mumbi, famously known as Zippy. Actually, that's my preferred name. I am a practicing psychologist, and I'm also the executive director and founder of an organization called Haven of Dreams, where we talk about issues of mental health and mostly talking about intergenerational traumas.
Beautiful. Yeah. You've been a psychologist for how long?
Well, I did my higher diploma in 2012, so started practicing, but then also took a break to raise my kids. I have two kids, 10 years and 9 years. Okay. Yes, but then I've also been practicing for the past 5 years or so.
Wow, you don't look like someone who has such old kids. You look maybe 5 years.
God.
God has kept you very, very well.
Sure.
Wow, amazing. And so psychology is your field of passion?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it is. If I was asked to choose again what I want to be, I think I'll still choose psychology and just working with the community. Yeah. And for me, I think I had already figured out that I wanted to work with the community when I was in high school. Okay. Because I was the head girl. I got leadership roles from Form 1. Then in Form 3, I was elected as the head girl, and so at that point people would come to me with issues. Oh, I'm going through this, I've started abusing drugs, our home situation is like this and that. So I found my passion at that point. And then we also had a guidance and counseling teacher. She's late, but she was called Mrs. Letoya. She was really amazing. You would go to her office, talk about the issues that you're going through. And she was a real inspiration to my career and just deciding I'm going to choose psychology. So when other people were saying I want to become a neurosurgeon, a doctor and a pilot, I couldn't relate at that age. But at a younger age, I wanted to become everything. I'd read Think Big.
Didn't we all?
I mean, so you want just to become all that.
You know, it's very fascinating to me to find someone who knows what to say in situations, in certain situations, because it's not the easiest thing that comes, to people. Like if someone came to me, sometimes I'm just a bit stumped on what to tell them, but to have someone who knows what to say, has experience in that field, it's really intriguing to me. And so thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
So today, like I said, we're talking about building mentally healthy relationships. And this cuts abroad to very many relationships. We're not just talking about boy-girl, we're talking about friendships, we're talking about in-laws, different kinds of relationships. And so feel free to answer these questions across the board in terms of relationships. So I think the first question I would ask you is, what's the importance of good mental health when navigating relationships?
I think the first thing is, one, we have been created as relational beings. no man is an island. I mean, if you're just by yourself, you just go to an island or somewhere and stay by yourself. But now, to answer your question, the first thing is communication.
Okay.
When you are in your right mental health space, it's easy for you to communicate because you're able to get in touch with your feelings. You're able to get in touch with your emotions and you know how to communicate.
Okay.
So it's easy for you when you're mentally okay to communicate the right way. It's not just about busting up. It's not about being correct, but it's about communicating the right way. The other aspect also is in terms of resilience. One of the things that we need to realize, it's whether it's a friendship, whether it's a daughter-mother relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship, it's not a walk in the park. It's not a straight line thing. We don't navigate and say we're going to get from point A to point B just perfectly. So when you are mentally okay, you get the resilience to go through the different phases of relationship, because you know that relationships are going to come with its own share of issues. I mean, right now we are experiencing issues from all corners, but then now when you're mentally okay, you know that this is just a phase, so you will know this is what I need to do to deal with specific phases. This is how I need to communicate. This is how I need to navigate the different issues, especially right now, because you'll have financial issues, you'll have career advancement issues. So you are at a better place to just be resilient. But then, of course, when you're mentally okay, you are also self-aware.
I was going to tackle that next. I was going to ask you the importance of self-awareness in a person's mental health.
So when you are self-aware, number one, you are able, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses or areas of growth, as we call them. You know also, you have the ability to set boundaries. And so with setting boundaries also helps you to become mentally okay. Because again, remember, we also come from different backgrounds and different spaces in our lives. And we have been raised, we have different childhood experiences. So when you're also able to understand what happened to you as a child, you become self-aware to also understand, why is it that I attract this kind of friendships? Why is it that I attract this kind of relationships? And then when you become self-aware, you are also able to individuate. Individuation is the space where you become an individual outside the external factors. You're able to identify your values. You're able to identify the things that work for you and actually who you are. So that's the process of also becoming self-aware, because again, as much as we are relational and we come from communities, it also gets to a point where now you have to be an individual. And also, it's also important when you become self-aware and individuated, because now it will also help you when it comes to relationship to understand this is the space in the relationship that I give, but then also this is my space as a person, and also helping you create the balance to understand there's a space that there's things that I need to work on as a person. There is my part as a person. That's where now as an individual, you can even just do a self-care activity and you will not feel guilty because you're in a relationship. There's also the aspect of you growing and you becoming the person that you need to become as much as you're in a relationship. Respecting that, yes, there's the issue of now in the interdependence in a relationship, but then there's also the aspect of interconnectedness in a relationship.
Wow. I think self-awareness is one of the most important traits any human being should have, because there's this thing that, you don't know you have bad breath until someone tells you, but if you knew you had it, you'd be able to sort the issue fast. I think it's the same when it comes to mental health awareness, self-awareness, because you can't deal with an issue that you don't know exists.
And it's a journey. Sometimes you think or imagine, I've known everything, I am at a good place. But then you realize that self-awareness is a journey, because there are days you will have to go back to your childhood experiences to understand why you're behaving the way you are in your adulthood. There are days that also self-awareness is also getting feedback from people, because there are things that I do not know about myself, but someone else can give me feedback, and then I'm able to work on myself. Remember, when it comes to self-awareness, you're not seeking perfection. You are seeking progress.
Wow. Okay, I like that. Not perfection, but progress.
We can't be perfect.
I love it. I love it. Now, you mentioned earlier communication, and I think this is one of the major challenges when it comes to relationships across the board, is when people don't know how to communicate. So how can I ensure that I'm a good communicator in my relationship?
I think the first thing you have to do is be honest with your feelings. And again, being honest with our feelings, most of us are actually not honest with our feelings, especially feelings of hurt. Why? I'll go back to some experiences in our childhood. When you would cry as a child, your parent would tell you, mbona unalia? Unalia kama mtoto. And you're a child. I'm supposed to cry. Kwani umeumia? You know, those kind of things. So with that, we have really not been able to talk about our feelings. We actually just push them away and not talk about them. But then it's important that you talk about your feelings and be honest about them. The other thing is initiate the conversation. Because of our upbringing, there are people that will hurt us and they will not realize that they have hurt us or said words that have actually hurt us, because they are familiar with those things. They are familiar with those words. So initiate the conversations when you're feeling hurt, or when you need to have someone just pick your mind. It's we again say that when you're in a relationship or with someone, they need to know us, they need to understand us. Sometimes they will not do that, and it will be frustrating when you expect that they will do that. So initiate those conversations about your feelings, but then also initiate them at the right time.
It's important, especially pale kwa marriage.
Initiate them at the right time. Isikwe nao hapo asubuhi nilikwambia, and then for us as women, you know the way we keep records. In 1990, we're in 2024. In 1990, in September, you had a green shirt. You hurt me. And then the guy is like, I don't even remember. Have I ever owned a green shirt, you know? But then initiate those conversations at the right time. And when it comes to communication, remember, you're not, if it is in terms of conflict, you're not fighting against the other person. You're fighting against the issue, the problem. So the idea is to talk about the problem, talk about the issue. And then also, when you're talking and communicating, most of the times we talk like, you hurt me. You do this and you hurt me when you do this. Change the conversation to, I feel hurt when you shout at me. So that they understand their action has a consequence on you. And it's also going to be easy, so that the person also understands. So it's not me being the problem, but it's what I am doing and the action being an issue. And of course, again, self-awareness will help you in communication. Because depending on where you come from, depending on how you communicate, you'll be able to understand that probably I need to change, to work on my communication. Because if someone tells you that you keep on shouting, or you address me in shout, and you're not a kissy, you know, kissy will shout naturally, you know, but then they give you feedback, but then you also get to understand the person, and also the feedback and self-awareness will help you. And sometimes when communication between two people is not really working, I would also say seek professional help.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this break. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with this conversation. Thank you so much for staying tuned. You're watching the Virtuous Woman Show with me, Sheila Juma, and I am on set with Mrs. Zipporah. Miss or Mrs.? Miss Zipporah. And we are talking about mentally healthy relationships. And before the break, we talked about the role of communication and especially self-awareness when it comes to mental health, because you cannot tackle an issue that you do not know exists. And we are back with this conversation. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'd like for you to give us an example of a conflict, maybe generally, and how that has been resolved.
So when I think of conflicts, I think one of the conflicts that I can think of at the top of my head that relationships and even friendships are going through is the conflict of finances, especially with this economy where the money, you're working, but the money is not coming in. And when I look at it from an aspect of a relationship aspect, that's really a key thing. And you will find that one probably is a spender, is a spendthrift. Retail therapy is good for them. Then the other one is in terms of, no, we need to save. Of course, there's the conflict is going to ensue from that conversation. So one of the things that when it comes to conflict is addressing the conflict and talking about the conflict and not attacking the person. That is very key. And of course, the first thing is to accept there's a conflict. Most of us want just to brush it off and imagine there is no conflict. Reality is the conflict is there. So admit and accept the conflict is there, and then specify on the exact conflict that is there. And then, of course, how the issue is affecting the relationship. When we go back to issues of finances, spending and having a saver, one that wants to save, talk about why they think spending is important. Talk about the feelings that come around with the conflict. Like, I feel nice when I spend, or I feel nice and comfortable and safe and secure when I know that we have saved for the future or for the next few months. And then come up with solutions on what you think will work best for you. So is it trying to work on a budget, saying that probably we'll have now a budget for the spending so that this other person does not feel like their freedom has been curtailed, their retail therapy has been taken away, or they get fulfillment when they do the shopping. So that's important to note that. Then the other aspect is, of course, when now you start implementing the solution, go back to it and review. In terms of, yes, this is the conflict that we were having. It was an issue of money. You want to spend, I want to save. Money is scarce. We decided that we'll have a budget, and then go back to it. How is it coming along? And then also in the process, give feedback in a loving way, in an empathetic way, so that this person also knows that, we are working on this budget, these are the changes that we have made, but then this is also the progress that we have made. And then, of course, in the event probably of finances, you do not know how to spend your money, you do not know what to do with it, I always say seek professional help. There is always help when you are intentional in seeking the help. And like I had earlier said, remember the issue is the conflict, the issue is not the person. So do not attack the person. Work together. It's not a matter of who is right and who won the debate or who won the conversation. It's a matter of putting or keeping the relationship still intact.
Love that. Prioritizing each other and your relationship over the conflict. All right, that's good. Let's move on to boundaries. I think this is one of, apart from communication, one of the things that are highly controversial, or maybe people don't know how to handle boundaries or how to even bring the topic of boundaries. And as you're talking, I would like for you to touch, especially when it comes to in-laws, because these are people that are now in your life, but you haven't, it's not like you chose them, you chose the spouse, but you didn't really, for friendships you choose your friends, you can choose your husband, but these are people that now are there, you just have to deal with them. So you can talk about, husband relationship or friendships, but especially with in-laws. How do you put boundaries and discuss boundaries, and how do you handle them?
I think in-laws are individuals, or it's a group that will stay with you.
Yeah.
That you never choose them. So again, when it comes to issues of boundaries and spousal boundaries, one of the things is to be able to communicate those boundaries in terms of, like, how do you communicate to me? I do not appreciate how you communicate with me. If you're communicating with me and you are emotional, let's take a breather and then meet when our emotions have now, like, we can have a logical conversation. We can talk without attacking each other. When it comes to the issues of in-laws, I believe it starts when you are dating. These are things that need to be communicated. Like, if it's an in-law, how often should they visit us? How many days should they stay? And it's when it comes to in-laws, one of the things that I have seen is that it has to be, you and your spouse need to be a team.
True.
So that it doesn't seem that when I'm talking to my family, my partner is the demon and the villain in the story.
Wow.
It has to be like, we have decided this. Because remember, you've come from families, but now you're building your families. If you're looking at it from a Christian perspective, Adam left and Adam became one with his wife. So that's how it should be. Have those conversations. When it comes to boundaries of money, because this is also something else that really brings a lot of conflict. Talk about this together with your spouse, that will be supporting maybe our family with money, let's say 10K a month. Either you decide you'll be sending the family or I'll be sending the family, so that they also know. But then also when it comes also to issues of boundary, I know we've been told that, of course, because we come from families, we have to take care of them. There's the issue of black tax that comes from families. Your parents will now blackmail you and tell you, if you don't take care of us, we will curse you, such kind of things. You also have to be deliberate in putting yourself first. Because remember, you are building a new relationship, you're building a new family. So intentionality is key, so that you don't suffocate your marriage when you're trying to please the in-laws.
Wow. Is it possible to speak boundaries without speaking? Like, is there a way you can act that will kind of bring the message out?
Like being passive aggressive. In terms of your in-law comes.
And is that proper?
In terms on your in-law comes, and when they come, you decide you'll go to the bedroom, day 1, day 2, and then you're like, they're not getting the conversation. That's being passive aggressive.
Even with your spouse.
Even with your spouse, it happens a lot, but then it's not sustainable. It can only work, it's temporary, but then of course you have to communicate. Boundaries have to be communicated so that people also understand that when I speak about my boundary and you go against my boundaries, there are consequences. So if you do not communicate that, people will always just walk over you and imagine that you are okay with it. It's the same way an in-law will come to my space and stay there for 1 year, and we never had the conversation, but then they'll be like, you're married to our brother, you're married to our relative, and you still want your space. Probably it's a 1-bedroom house, you have kids, then an in-law is coming, and they even don't tell you how long they will be there. They'll be like, I'm just visiting, siku chache. The siku chache turns into months. The months turn into years. But you see, now you have to learn to vocalize your boundaries and say, I do not respect this. And if you continue doing this, this is what will happen.
I think that was important to note, because especially because our audience is women, we tend to be very passive aggressive. What's wrong?
Nothing. The nothing, get the words, but the face is like nothing.
Get the message without me having to speak.
And if I may say something, sometimes it's because most of us were not vocal when we were growing up, or even in our relationships, we were not vocal. If you check on most people who are passive aggressive, their voices were not heard when they were younger. So what they would do is become passive aggressive so that they become noticed. But it's also high time. And then, of course, depending also on the culture, there are cultures that women are only allowed to be seen and not to be heard. That also affects us and how we set our boundaries.
Yeah. Wow. All right. I think we have time to handle just one more question. And for me, it would be differences in opinions. How do you handle differences in opinions, especially when it comes to marriage? I want one thing, and this is my opinion on this, and you have your own opinion. How do I deal with that?
The differences in opinions will always
be there.
Yes. I mean, because we are getting to know ourselves every other day. We are allowed to change our opinions. I always tell people that you're not a tree, or you're not a curtain just to stay in the house and just be moved when someone is moving you. You're allowed to change your opinions. One of the things we also need to realize is that we come from different backgrounds, and there's a way that we see our opinions, and we see we have different ideologies. One of the things to do is respect that you have your own idea, I have my own idea, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with you having a different idea from me. But then how you are able to navigate through it is what makes the difference. Talking about, tell me, why do you have this idea? Why do you have this ideology? Where is it coming from? Let's have a discussion on that. Then the other thing is to be able to respect the ideology that your spouse has, and then now start having conversation. How is this idea probably affecting our marriage? How is it affecting our relationship? And then how do we move on from this? And then now just deciding that, of course I'll respect your opinion, you'll respect mine, and it is okay. And there are things that you can move past that. But then now when it now becomes a major issue that now needs to be discussed, then you go back to the drawing board and discuss it. But then it goes back to respect and respecting my opinions. And for example, you will find there are individuals where their differences of opinions comes in actually makeup. Basic things, like, because I know of people that were raised and their mom and their siblings were not allowed to wear makeup. But I come from a family where my mom has allowed me. I've seen her applying makeup. She's bought me makeup kit, and it is okay. So those are the things. Does it affect you? Does it affect your values? Then we can have, we agree to disagree, and it is okay, as long as it's not on fundamental things that now will affect you. And that's why we need to have these conversations before even getting married, when you're dating, so that you know that, of course, this is what I can do. Like, I've seen something trending on social media, when one person was talking about the fact that they had to separate with a girlfriend, not because they didn't love each other or they had other issues, but it was on issues of naming their children. So that's a major thing it's a major thing to the guy. It's not a major thing to the girl. But then now they couldn't have this conversation. So I respect you. I respect your opinion. I also have my opinions, but this is where now we cannot agree to disagree.
I agree, because there are those things you can live with, but there are things that you have to figure out what are those things for me, and discuss them before you get into the relationship. That's all the time we had. My goodness, can you believe it? Thank you so much for coming. We're really grateful. I learn something new every time we have these shows, and I'm sure our audience does. So I'm really, really grateful. That's all the time we had. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.